What is up, YouTube? Today I'm coming back at you with another video, and today's video is going to be another movie-related video. So today's topic is actually going to be something that I've been thinking about doing for a while. I've wanted to make a video like this, and so this is basically my first video of this type, and if you guys like this, let me know in the comment box below, and I'll do more videos like this, because I think it gives some good discussion over movies that don't really get talked about a lot anymore. So today I'm going to be giving you 5 movie recommendations that you should check out. And these are just personal opinions. These aren't necessarily my favorite movies, but I think they're good movies and definitely worth checking out. And some of them are lesser known, some of them are well known. It just depends on what movie it is. But I'm trying to pick movies that aren't AAA blockbusters that I don't see a lot of talk about anymore. So whether that be something that was popular in the past or something that's just relatively unknown. This is just to try to give some people that may not have seen some of these older movies some suggestions to check out. So I've got 5 different movies picked out here, a variety of different genres and tones. So we'll start off with the lightest movie of the bunch, and is a really good movie. And we'll just get right into it. I'll talk a little bit about each movie as I go through. I'll tell you how you can get it, how you can watch it, and yeah, so first movie on my list, and these are by no means like a rating category. I like all these movies, but not necessarily, I don't necessarily think this is the best movie of the bunch. It's just a movie I like, and I'm just trying to go through and start off with a light movie. So the first movie we have is Dragonheart. Now, if you've never seen Dragonheart before, this is a fantasy movie. It is rated PG-13. This movie came out in the 90s, and it has Dennis Quaid, Sean Connery, and David Thewlis as the main sort of cast. And it is a really, in my opinion, it's a really well done movie. It's one of my favorite fantasy movies of all time. It is, it's got dragons in it. It's got, you know, your stereotypical medieval setting. It's nothing too complex. It's actually a really easy movie to understand, so it's like really good for people of all ages. Like I used to watch this all the time as a kid, so I would say it's very good for children. There's not a whole lot of blood and gore. There's actually very little blood. But there is fighting and violence in it, so just be aware of that. But the main premise of this movie is there's this king who is basically tyrannical, as most fantasy kings tend to be in a lot of stories. And you have this knight who is basically tracking down the last dragon. And basically the series of events that unfold throughout the movie kind of, it's pretty, it's not anything groundbreaking in terms of themes, but I think just the way it's done and the special effects, especially for the time, are really, really good. It's got a great soundtrack. It's got decent acting. I'm not going to lie and say it's got the best acting in the world, but if you like that 90s cheesy movie feel, this definitely has that, but it's also just a really, you know, good story. It's not like, it's not the best story, but it's definitely a good story, and in terms of fantasy stories, it's definitely one of my favorites. So Dragonheart, definitely recommend that one. Alright, now we're going to get into some more complex movies. That one was probably the least complex movie that I've got here. A lot of my movie recommendations are going to kind of be more not necessarily super complex or anything, but like I tend to like movies that make me think a little bit at least. So the next movie I chose Dragonheart #1 because it was it's not a super well-known movie, but I think amongst a certain crowd I think it's pretty beloved. So I definitely wanted to get that one out there. Now this one maybe more well-known. I say maybe because I actually had to watch this twice going through high school for 2 different classes. One was a genetics course, and I can't remember, I think the other one was like a general biology course. And it is, it's a movie I think, I find it kind of funny that it was that they played it in school multiple times. It's actually a really good movie, and I actually, even having to rewatch it a second time in school, I never really was really upset with that. It was actually an enjoyable movie to watch, which you can't always say for movies that are shown in a school setting. But this one was actually really enjoyable and a really good movie, and that is Gattaca. So, like I said, this is a kind of a well-known movie. It's not super well-known, but it's definitely one that gets talked about in certain settings. Like, I think some biology courses talk about this movie because it's got a lot of genetic sort of themes in this movie. So that's something that sort of takes the forefront there. It's got Ethan Hawke, Uma Thurman, and Jude Law as the main characters, and it's a really good. I would say it's like a drama, a near future drama, and basically the whole point of this movie is in the near future at birth, everyone has a DNA sample taken, and it can narrow down everything about how your life is going to go in terms of how the most likely cause of death of natural causes, what age they'll be at that point, and all sorts of other genetic markers. And because of that, genetic discrimination starts to pop up in society. So people stop having children a biological way and actually have artificial pregnancies where they basically pick the best genetics from each person and make a child that way. And so it's a movie kind of about genetic discrimination and it's sort of a drama about two brothers, one who was genetically picked and then one that was born naturally, and basically their lives in this movie. It's a really interesting movie. It's acted very well. It's got a very cool cinematography look to it. Cinematic look, I should say. And I think that it's definitely a slower paced movie, but it's got a good payoff at the end. So I would definitely recommend this one. Oh, I should also mention Dragonheart can be picked up on DVD and Blu-ray. I don't think there's any streaming service for that one yet. Gattaca can be picked up on DVD, Blu-ray, and maybe, I think I saw 4K somewhere at one point, but I'm not sure. And I believe this can also be streamed on some streaming services. So definitely a couple different options to check out there. I would highly recommend that one. Alright, so the next movie that I chose here is a movie that is more of an indie movie. This one's definitely going to be probably the least well-known out of my entire bunch. It is an independent movie. This one is published by Lionsgate, and I actually saw this one on a TV run around like midnight. You know how some cable networks will run indie movies at very, very late times? This was one of them, and I watched it. It's actually a very good movie, and I picked it up. So this one is Wrist Cutters, A Love Story. This one is only available on DVD, and I think you can stream it on Amazon Prime. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, it's called Wrist Cutters, A Love Story. And this is sort of a dark comedy about basically the afterlife for people that commit suicide. And the whole premise of this movie is a guy who's depressed after a breakup with his girlfriend. He commits suicide, and his afterlife is basically when people that commit suicide die in this movie, they go to a place that is exactly like normal life, but everything's just a little bit worse. And so it's just it's a very kind of like dark comedy, and what I really like about this movie is it focuses a lot on the characters, and the character development in this movie is very good. The soundtrack's a little odd for this, but in terms of cinematics, it's actually quite well shot, and I think that it's got a good flow of the story. You never really felt bored during this movie. There's always something interesting going on. So definitely one to check out if you've never heard of this one. If you like dark comedies, and kind of like a dark comedy mixed with a little bit of drama. It's not a super like laugh out loud funny, but it's more of like a expelling air out of your nostrils funny. So definitely an interesting movie. I highly recommend that one. You can only really get it on DVD physically, and so I definitely recommend trying to pick that up. Alright, this next movie is pretty well known actually. The next two are kind of well known. But this one actually used to be my favorite movie at one point, and the reason why I picked this one, even though I think this is probably the most well known out of the bunch, is because it's, even though it's pretty well known, it's only really got like a cult following, and I always run into people that have never heard of this movie, and whenever I ask somebody, hey, have you seen this movie? Most of the time they're going to answer no. Only like other movie buffs are the only other people that really watch this movie. And so I definitely think it's one worth checking out if you haven't seen it, and that is Donnie Darko. Like I said, this used to be my favorite movie. Back in high school, I loved this movie. I've watched this movie dozens and dozens of times. It's so it's got so much rewatchability in it, which is really, really cool. So basically, what this is sort of like a this is sort of like a light horror movie. It's not really like it's a psychological with a little bit of horror elements. I would say it's more psychological though. It's definitely a psychological movie, and I really, really enjoy this movie. It's about a story of It's got time travel elements. I don't want to say too much because this is a movie you definitely want to go into blind, and it's got time travel elements in it. It's got mental health elements to it, and it's basically about this kid who's got he goes to therapy for arson, I believe, when he was younger, and he starts having these visions of this bunny suited character called Frank, and he's quite a disturbing character, and he starts telling him to do certain things, and he basically follows what he says out of curiosity, and you basically see almost a slow sort of descent into madness, but not so much madness as just sort of like a strange psychological realm of things. It's hard to really explain, but I definitely recommend checking this one out. If you're a fan of psychological movies, something like sort of the same sort of atmosphere as Butterfly Effect, but much better, I would say Donnie Darko is definitely right up your alley. It's such a good movie, really well shot. Now, I will say one thing about this: you can get it on DVD, Blu-ray, and I know you can watch this one streaming. However, I highly, highly, highly recommend not watching the director's cut. The only difference between the theatrical cut and the director's cut is they redid all the special effects for the director's cut. Other than that, you're getting all the same scenes, just redone visual effects. And honestly, I think the lower budget special effects of the theatrical release are much more fitting for this movie. I think they went overly flashy in the director's cut, and they did some tweaks to the sound editing that just really, really take a big hit in terms of the overall satisfaction of watching this. And the overall atmosphere, too, is really ruined with that new sound mixing. And so, I highly recommend getting the theatrical cut if available. I know that this particular Blu-ray set, the one with this cover and says director's cut at the bottom, comes with both versions of the film, so you're safe getting this version. I don't know about the newer Blu-ray releases, but definitely try to find one that you can get the theatrical cut on. I think it's a much better cut of the film. Alright, so the last movie on this list is pretty well known, I think. I know that there's been 2 sequels to this movie, but this is definitely, I've seen them all, this is definitely the best one in this series, and it really stands alone. You don't need to have any sequels, and you can really treat it as its own film. And so it's one that I highly recommend. It's pretty well known, and that is Unbreakable. So, Unbreakable, it's an M. Night Shyamalan movie, so it has all the sort of characteristics of an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Very weird camera angles, very atmospheric visuals. It's also got a wonderful soundtrack, absolutely wonderful soundtrack. It's really, really well scored. It's acted with Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson are the main two characters in this film. And it's about a guy who is in this train accident, and he's the sole survivor. And he has no physical harm to his body whatsoever. And so it's basically a psychological movie again about, I'm trying not to spoil anything, but it's a psychological movie about coming to grips with the fact of what this miraculous thing that had happened to him and his journey as he kind of discovers some interesting facts about himself, is what I will say. It's definitely a good psychological movie. It's got, I would say it's got a decent appeal in terms of spectrum of people that might enjoy this movie. But this definitely is a little bit more of a niche title, sort of similar to Donnie Darko. It's got a really good atmosphere. I think it's really well acted. There's a good amount of twists in it, just like just like most M. Night Shyamalan movies. So it's just a really well shot film. It's one of his, I think it was his second film he made. So it's a really wonderful movie. If you like darker psychological movies, I definitely recommend checking that one out. It's not like as, it doesn't really make you think as much as something like Donnie Darko, but it's definitely pretty close. It's a good movie, definitely, and there's some things that will happen in that movie that you won't see coming. So, I honestly, I can't recommend all these movies enough. They're really, really great in all their own respects, and yeah, so like I said, got a wide variety of different types of movies, a lot of different genres, a lot of different tones. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comment box below. If you guys checked out any of these movies, let me know. I would love to discuss these movies with you. If you guys have any recommendations for me, please let me know. I tend to watch all the movies that you guys recommend. And yeah, so thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.